What's up guys, your boy Nature Man here, and today I have a very super special video. It's a video doc. It's going to be a graphic one. Hope you're ready. Viewer discretion heavily advised. Seriously, cannot stress that enough. This video is pretty rough. Alright. Before I get super deep into this video, I need to seriously show some real love and support to my friends who've helped me get onto Twitch. I've had a Twitch account, and I've had a Rumble and Kick account, and I have a YouTube channel. I have 2 YouTube channels, obviously. But I need to say thanks to them because they've allowed me onto their platforms while I do not have a computer to stream with, to be in their stream, on their platform, presenting myself, who I am, and being a part of their community. And for that, I really cannot thank them enough. They will be linked in the description of this video. So please, if you like my content, if you like me, if you want to see more of me or more of what I can do, and less of me being a jumbled mess on camera, and more of just me being relaxed and chill with my friends on a game, please go follow them. Those people are C3Real 261, It's Arena 420, Luxray BBX, Special _K _ 1428, Blunt Bitch 05, LMTD Games, Neftastic, and C Tacos. All of those people are amazing content creators. They make very interesting content. They make good videos, alright? And they're just great people. And they've taught me a lot. They've helped me understand more than I ever thought I could, more than I would ever be able to understand on my own. And so that, guys, I seriously, with a heavy heart, say thank you. Now, without further ado, the Waco Texas Siege of 1993. If you're like me, you like history. And if you're like me, you have trust issues with the American government. And if you're also like me, you know of a few times where some governing agencies did some not so calm things that really have messed up a situation that could have been a lot calmer. Today's video is not an exception to that. Welcome to the 51-day standoff between the Branch Davidians, the FBI, and the ATF. A mishandled, government handmade tragedy that pushed the lines of what many U.S. citizens would call excessive force or misuse of power, which ultimately ended the lives of 80 people. Strap in, folks. This one is rough. To kind of understand and grasp how we got to such a sorry, scary place of government overreach and extreme malpractice, I need to explain the group that was mistreated, just briefly. I didn't go super deep into it because I'm not super religious. I do partake in church sometimes, but I don't know everything, alright? I don't know everything about the Davidians or their specific beliefs, and I figured it was probably a bit too much to get into. Not that it would be a bad idea. I'm going to remaster this video for sure, 100%. At some point down the line. My computer is almost done, and that's when I'm gonna redo all this stuff. All right, even the Ted Kaczynski video, things will be so much smoother. The video quality will go up like 100%. Just trust me. I just got my GPU today. Look at this sucker, dude. This thing is huge. This thing is a beast. My computer is gonna be absolutely jacked, dude. It's gonna be crazy. And my friend C3Real 261, or Serial, is actually going to be helping me build it, and I'll probably be making that into some content too, if he is cool with that. But you guys get it. So I didn't go fully into the Branch Davidians because it's just a lot of my storage, and I figured it might be just a little bit too much for this video specifically. But in short, the Branch Davidians are a splinter group of the Davidians, which is a Seventh-day Adventist sect of Christianity. Basically, This was a death and destruction is coming. Here's where we defend ourselves from the end times kind of group, right? With that out of the way, allow me to tell you about the leader of the Branch Davidians, what he did, where they were located, how many members there were, and what pinged the interest of the FBI and the ATF into the Branch Davidians. The leader of the Branch Davidians was David Koresh. Let me fix my mask here. Born August 17th, 1959 in Houston, Texas. Originally, his name was Vernon Wayne Howell, but later changed in 1990, I think, thereabout, after he kind of gained following because he thought it'd be clever, like, oh, okay, these people believe that, God is going to save them from a rapture or some sort of, like, doomsday event. So he changed his name to David Koresh, as in David, like King David, and Koresh meaning Cyrus in Hebrew. That was part of his trick to kind of get all these people under his influence and kind of make them malleable to his will. David was around the Davidians prior to a failing of a previous religious prophecy that the previous leaders of the Davidians themselves had predicted. They gathered at the new Mount Carmel, established about 20 miles northeast of Waco. This property was quickly claimed by David. Well, I think actually New Mount Carmel and Mount Carmel are two different places. Mount Carmel is where the Branch Davidians were. New Mount Carmel was a different place. But David basically came up to these people after this prophecy failed. There was like 900 people. He gained a small following. He said, guys, I am your sign. I am the chosen lamb. I am the spiritual heir to King David. I am the man who releases the 7 seals. He gained a small following and he took over Mount Carmel. Mount Carmel was Mount Carmel Center in Waco, Texas, or 9 miles east of Waco. Right on, that edge there. And it had a lot of space for people, right? Enough for 80 people to live there. Excuse me. So David took over control of these people in 1987. David has some notable features too. He was a single child, born to a 15-year-old mother. He was abused by his stepfather. He was also a high school dropout. And he went to the same Seventh-day Adventist church as his own mother. And in this church, David was promptly kicked out. David was discovered trying to interpret the scripture in his own way and kind of spread his own teaching to the people of the church. And the people of the church didn't like that, so they kicked him out. And taking over the Davidians kind of had a little power struggle, which was also another thing that I couldn't really get into due to storage and technical difficulties. But basically, David showed up with the son of the previous leaders of the Davidians with 4 armed people, and they were waving guns around, and, the previous leader ended up dead, and in court, he just said, oh yeah, well, we were aiming at a tree, not the guy. So that's how that went. And apparently that was enough to get him out from what I can understand. I didn't really go super deep into it, but that's kind of what I took from it. Hopefully that is not super wrong. Either way, assuming his power over the Davidians, David ruled with an iron fist, all right? Super authoritarian. David had his own doctrine even that he came up with, in which it suggested that he was the chosen spiritual heir of King David. Some of the authority that he had over his followers involved making all of the men celibate, taking all of their wives as his own, having kids with those wives, and claiming that once he's gone, the kids will rule the world in his own David Koresh lineage thing. Right? I know that's insane. But so is every other doomsday messiah. Several of the wives David took, apparently, debatably, according to the members of said following of David, and the ex-members of the Davidians were underage. All right? I don't care who you are, that's gross. Don't diddle children. Stay away from the kids. If you do anything, make it consensual with another adult. But David took some underage wives. I think the youngest of which was like 14 or something like that, which is crazy, disgusting, and horrible. And they had kids with him. So this landed the Davidians, or the Branch Davidians, in a lot of hot water around 1992 in the court, mainly by ex-members claiming that he was sexually abusing children. Then, around this time, David founded a retail gun business. You can see where this is going. Once again, between the guns and the child abuse stuff, the feds got really curious. So, around 1993, when the siege kicked off, there were 85 people total living in this compound with David. 20 to 28 of those people in Mount Carmel were children. 50 or more were women. Some of those women were pregnant. Do you see how horrible this is already? Do you see what destruction lies ahead here? Just keep that in mind. The weapons that David was stockpiling for this gun retail business, this was according to the ATF. It goes as follows: 136 firearms, including ARs, handguns, 700 mags for the guns, 200,000 rounds of ammunition, 110 lower and upper receivers for AR-15s, M16 rifles, grenade launchers and grenade launcher attachments for the ARs, 400 empty M31 rifle grenades, including black powder and other explosive chemicals. Apparently, there were AK-47s, M11s, and HK-SP-89s converted to full automatic, 21 illegal suppressors, and illegally modified AR-15s made full auto. I support guns, but I don't know how you guys feel about it. I'm not going to argue gun law, but I guess I could kind of see why the ATF was like, hey, yo, the fuck. So, going from there, how did the siege actually kick off? Well, obviously the guns and child abuse stuff, but a reporter around this time, February 28th, 1993, was looking for directions to Mount Carmel. They stopped to ask a postman. This postman ended up somehow, by some stroke of luck, being David Koresh's brother-in-law. They said, hey, do you have any directions to Mount Carmel? There's about to be a violent ATF raid. We need to get the scoop. David's brother-in-law immediately jumps in his car, speeds all the way up to Mount Carmel and says, hey dude, there's about to be a giant raid, violent by the ATF. They're coming for your arrest. They have search warrants. So immediately, right off the rip, the entire compound is set red alert. All these people are terrified. They start praying. And I should also mention that there was an undercover agent already in the compound. Once again, I did not go into the weeds on that because it's a whole other long tangent. But David had already figured this guy out because he was probably asking some sketchy questions. And David had kind of guessed, by some information and by some of the stuff that he was doing. That guy's like an ATF undercover agent or something. Anyways, David confronts this agent who's undercover currently in the compound. He says, hey man, I know you're an agent. Can you call this off? Is there any way to fix this right now? He acts stupid, walks straight out the front door like it never even happened. He doesn't even know what's happening right now. Then the ATF rolls up. Now, I need you to kind of be very visual with this. If an officer comes with a search warrant, how many officers is he bringing? Because when you see it on police, on TV or maybe on YouTube, those fake Patty Mayo videos or whatever, It's probably like 1 or 2 people. Yeah, that's not how the ATF went about it. They went all in. So, sorry, let me flip the page real quick. February 28th, 1993, at about 9:45 a.m., the ATF had launched the surprise raid on the compound even after knowing the element of surprise was gone. No longer in effect, the Branch Davidians were already completely aware that everything was about to happen was going to happen. They had search warrants and arrest warrants for David Koresh in the compound, and it's not known exactly what started it off, but there was almost immediately upon the ATF arriving, bullets being fired. No one knows who shot the first shot. No one knows what triggered it, but there is some ideas as to what happened, some by the Branch Davidians themselves and some by the ATF agents. Personally, I'm going to go ahead and side with the Branch Davidians here because I just don't trust the government. But the Branch Davidians say that the FBI shot one of their dogs upon entry, like immediately, right off the rip, right off the goop, and promptly they returned fire. Makes sense to me. That's at least how I understand it. I think that was how it went. But the other perspective of this is from the ATF agents who said that they were immediately shot at upon entry. Now, why would they be shot at upon entry? I don't know. Maybe it's the fact that between 76 and 80 different fully, completely super fit, active, like fully kitted out men with rifles, ARs, pistols, and MP5s rolled up in covered trailers to this compound, speeding up, looking for trouble. They had their blood type written on their wrists and necks for instant transfusion in case they were gunned down and needed blood. They were looking for trouble. Oh, sorry. Alarm came up on my phone. But basically, they woke up and chose violence. That's how they rolled up on this compound, right? You can see that's not the way it should have went, and it just gets worse from here. Basically, the Branch Davidians were probably inside terrified. They were seeing all this happen, and they were probably like didn't know what to do. That's how I would imagine it from their perspective. But as the ATF plotted their entry and execution of the search warrants, is really where the water is muddied and the fire started. Simple as that. No one knows what happened. David, at some point early in this confrontation, immediately gets a bullet to the wrist and the side. Presumably through a wall or a door or a window. No one really knows. I've heard from at least a Wendigoon video that a door that had bullet holes in it where David was supposedly at the time just kind of disappeared. I wonder how that happened. 6 Branch Davidians were killed. 4 ATF agents were killed. 16 to 20 people were injured. That's total so far. And as I have described this whole scenario so far, just what issues do you think were very present in this scenario? You know, what issues do you see here? I see a lot. The fact that they were fully kitted out, bulletproof vest, ARs, pistols, handguns, covered trailers, and not to mention the fact that they had low-flying helicopters to distract the Branch Davidians from the soldiers that were already on the ground. Like, what the hell is going on? That's insane. Right? So, going forward, the second, basically, that all this fire started, all this gunfire, all this heavy bullet through the walls, through the windows, soldiers were like literally rushing the building with ladders and breaking in the windows, trying to pull down the curtains, trying to get into this house, trying to search for stockpiled weapons for David, for anybody that they could arrest. And there's agents and Davidians being hit left and right. But 2 distinct phone calls were made during this time, immediately after the agents began firing on the compound. One being made from Wayne Martin, and in the background of this call, you can hear gunshots, heavy gunfire the entire time, like almost no stop at all. Wayne is screaming, pleading for the police to call off the ATF. He called 911, begging the operator. Mount Carmel is under fire. The ATF shot first, and they have the right to defend themselves. Screaming in desperation to the operator that there are women and children being caught in the crossfire, and to call off the ATF shooting. The second phone call, made by David Koresh. David called McLennan County Sheriff's Office, speaking to Lieutenant Larry Lynch, begging for the shooting to end, as there are several dead. After literal hours of bullets raining between the compound and the ATF, a ceasefire had finally been reached. Due to a lack of ammunition and firepower on the ATF side, they ran dry, literally didn't have enough bullets to even touch what the Branch Davidians had. And they needed to recover the fallen soldiers and the wounded soldiers that were trapped inside the compound, and they needed time for negotiation. Now, going forward, the FBI is getting involved. When the FBI gets involved in this scenario, you know it's about to get bad. And it got really bad. Like, super, super disgustingly bad. Like, there's not any chance of saving it bad. The FBI did hostage negotiation, psychological warfare. They used listening devices, armored vehicles like, tanks. They used CS gas. And they did all manner of things to psychologically beat down the Branch Davidians as they were trapped inside this compound thinking that they were going to die. Women and children, by the way. Literally. So let's dive into it. After David had called some TV stations and radio shows and literally the police to kind of express his view of the shooting, religion, God, and prophecies, the FBI immediately cut the phone lines. They did not want David speaking out to anyone that could potentially help or alleviate the situation. They wanted to only have direct contact between the Davidians and the FBI. So that left David with just, the hostage negotiator. And it just, from there, it was just a bunch of negotiation. So they obviously did not want David to loose lip their corruption here. They know that it could have gotten a lot messier given he did. And there's some stuff that I am leaving out here, but once again, it's just because of storage limitation. The longest I can make this video is probably like 35 to 40 minutes, but I'll kind of add a brief note to it. David had requested to this negotiator that he wants to record videos of all the people inside and kind of show the world what just happened and how they feel right now with the FBI and the ATF. And in these videos, they kind of describe that this is not right for anybody. No one governing agency should have that much power over weapons and firearms. No one governing agency should have the ability to kick any one person's door in for any reason over anything suspected. That was kind of the gist, right? And I don't know if those videos were published to the public until after this whole thing was done, but that was one of his requests before surrender. David, on the phone with the FBI, negotiated, they talked about religion, religious views, his roles as a religious figure, him being a spiritual leader and a prophet. He promised to leave the compound peacefully several times, and he claimed that he was not planning a mass suicide. He discussed the book of the Seven Seals and, from the book of Revelations, and what he has to do with it and what he was planning to do with that. He would stall for time. He would even discuss the allegations through his own religious blend of prophetic words. The FBI cut the phone lines not only to separate and isolate the Branch Davidians from the outside world, but literally to just increase the pressure and mentally just force them into surrender, beat them down, lower all the morale. So going from there, the FBI cut the power to the compound. Why did they do that? The FBI apparently wanted to level the playing field between the women and children and men inside of the compound with the soldiers that were outside. Cold and muddy were the fields outside, so they were like, oh yeah, well, it would lower the morale of the people inside and make them come out and surrender if we just cut the power and make them miserable. So that's what they did. Going from there, during the nighttime, the FBI put up these giant lights, right? And they kind of just beamed them, like absolutely destroyed people's eye sockets, right? With these lights. They were so bright, it looked like daytime in your house at like midnight. They did this at all hours of the night to make sure that the Branch Davidians, the women and children and men in there, were completely sleep deprived as a form of psychological torture and psychological warfare to break them down even further. And as this was happening, 24 hours a day, all day long, for 7 weeks, mind you, this was happening. The FBI also crushed the cars of David and his followers with armored vehicles, like literally, like just to freak them out. And at all hours of the day, they played pop music, Christmas carols, Tibetan chants. They had sounds of like screams, the sounds of rabbits being slaughtered. I don't know what that sounds like, but that sounds horrible. And they also had the sound of like dentist drills to really disturb the kids in there and give them nightmares and PTSD or something. All for the sake of psychological warfare and psychological pressure to make these people as battered as possible and surrender. From there, on top of, all that, after this happened for weeks, actual weeks, the FBI was green-lighted to go ahead and do a CS gas attack. Now, what is CS gas? CS gas is tear gas. The way that they did it, though, is a different story. The FBI used armored vehicles and tanks with modifications, I guess, to shoot CS gas through the windows of the compound and spray it into the doors and all the open areas. And they used tanks to crush the open, not crush open, but they used tanks to push anything out of the way. Walls, buildings, structures, anything, doesn't matter. They used tanks, they pushed the walls down, they pushed the walls in, and they were just flooding this compound with CS gas. And the specific stuff that they were using at 6 a.m. on April 19th, 1993, M1 Abrams tanks, Bradley armored personnel carriers, M728 CEVs, just terrifying. Going at women and children with tear gas. I guess the Branch Davidians actually they were alerted to this, so they put on gas masks, and they refused to leave. But still, Jesus, those are kids in there. Anyways, they pushed the compound. They tried to get them out with the gas. Over or around 100 canisters of tear gas were used. And during this scuffle, this altercation, there was some gunshots supposedly heard. The FBI claims that the Branch Davidians were killing themselves and setting the place on fire as like a last-ditch effort to not be killed by the FBI and to have like a suicide by fire thing. So the gunshots, according to the FBI, were the Davidians killing the dissenters who were trying to flee from the fire. But this fire broke out, a hellish blaze that literally engulfed the entire place. right? If you weren't getting burned, you were apparently getting shot. And this fire claimed the lives of David and 80 of his followers. David having a bullet in his head, unclear whether or not it was self-inflicted or, whether it was someone else. And the rest of all the women and children and men in there were either ashes or just bodies found in the wreckage, almost unrecognizable. If this conflict says anything at all, it's that, between, if the standoff between, people who were taken advantage of and the FBI says anything at all, it screams failure of our justice system, catastrophic overreach, abuse of power, and excessive force by government agency. The lack of any thoughtful planning or consideration of the innocent people in the compound around David at the time. It just says, it doesn't matter if you're a kid who was potentially abused or you're a full-grown man who has potential for danger. The FBI is just going to slam the dial up 10 notches and knock your fucking walls down. And this, it'll always stand as a monument to the present and the future, to teach our future generations what we should and shouldn't do and how things should be controlled. This situation was so severely mishandled. It could have been done in so many different ways that probably would have been a lot smoother and would have had nobody killed. And I hope my little video here does some of that justice. The FBI pretty much got off with this, from what I could tell. And also, interesting fact, the same team that was in Ruby Ridge was also in this siege. So go figure. We'll talk about that one in probably the next video. So give me like 6 days. I'll probably have that up real quick. But I think that's all I got for today, guys. That was my discussion of the Waco Seige and how the FBI and the ATF terribly mishandled this entire operation and how they endangered the lives and killed many people, either by ignorance or just by horrible planning. Also, I'm not suicidal or any bit sad. I do not plan on killing myself. Thank you for watching. And yeah, guys, I'll see you. Peace out. Love you.